Okay guys, well, I thought this would be the right moment to give you an overlook of what I've been doing lately, and well, I'll show you the inventory as it stands, and I'll tell you a little bit of background information which I didn't give you while I was working on the chassis of the EverReady N3. So here you see laid out all the parts which I unmounted from out of the cabinet of the N3, and this is the fully restored chassis of the N3, and as you can see there are plenty of new parts in it. Now, one detail that you should keep in mind is that inside the IF cans, in each IF can actually, there are coils, IF coils, and around those coils there are two 100 picofarad capacitors. Now, since this is a very cramped, very small chassis, well, let me say it in another way. If you need to change those capacitors like I had to, and anyway, if you need to work inside the chassis, and as you can see all the parts are up here, well, you need to unmount a few parts. Now, as you can see here, these are the two buttons, or wheels rather, that control the radio. So this wheel is the wheel that goes onto the tuner capacitor like this, and this wheel is in fact the volume knob, and that goes onto the potentiometer which you see here. So if you're going to take apart this type of chassis to work on, the very first thing you need to do is to unmount the variable capacitor here, this big block here. And the way to do it is to unsolder it first, and that's quite easy. There are only two contact points which are soldered actually, one with a wire going to one of the IF cans, and then the other contact to which two capacitors run, and a wire which attaches it to, I think, to another capacitor here. This one, this ceramic capacitor. Now, when you unsoldered these 2 points, then you need to undo the screws at the front of it, and there are 3 screws. I don't know, yeah, now you can see them. There's this one, and this one. If you undo these 3 screws and you unsoldered the wires and parts up here, then this capacitor just lifts up and out. Remember, the shaft is pretty long, so you need to tilt it up first and then pull it out a little bit to up and to you. Once that part is out, you need to undo the IF cans. Now, the first IF can is easy to unmount. There are only a couple of bolts, one up here. Well, actually there are a couple of bolts, actually 3. So 1 up here and 2 down there. Now, to undo this IF can, you need to undo this bolt right here, and then a bolt buried all the way down there. I think you can see it. Let me take something to point at it. So you need to undo that bolt there where I'm pointing with my tweezers. So, and that one is a really hard one to do. But okay, so when you've got this bolt out and this bolt out, you can just pull out the IF can away from the chassis. The same thing here, you just pull away the IF cans. Now the IF cans as well as the chassis were covered in that nasty, smelly cadmium powder substance, which is toxic to boot. So my advice is that when you work on a oxidized chassis like this, you put on some latex gloves, you know, because it's really not a good idea to inadvertently put your fingers into your mouth or anything like that, or to have that stuff stuck under your nails, because it's really very bad for your health. Okay, so then another thing to do is to unmount the potentiometer and the audio transformer. This one, the transformer, is held to the chassis with 2 screws. So if you undo the screws, you can either swivel the transformer out and then undo the knob from the volume control from the potentiometer, or you can just radically unsolder the transformer and just take it out, and that's it. And then you need to undo the potentiometer, which is it's held in place onto the chassis with 2 large bolts. I think you can see them. So you unsolder whatever you can from it, and then you undo the 2 big bolts and you lift it up and out, and then you unsolder the other parts if you wish. And then the final thing to unmount is this row of ceramic capacitors, and those are held on by 2 screws and bolts here. So once you unmounted this, oh yes, and you need to unsolder the antenna from the antenna lid of the box. 3 wires and that's it. Yeah, just label them and then put them away. Oh, I nearly forgot to mention. When you take out the chassis from the box, there is mounted on the front of it this, which is the dial screen, let's say, or the dial bevel. I don't know the exact name of it, but okay, the dial, let's say. And the dial is screwed to the chassis with these 2 screws. So that's one thing. Then once you undid the dial, you need to rotate the chassis with the tuner capacitor shaft towards you, and then you need to undo this wheel. this pulley, and the pulley is mounted like this onto the shaft. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind is that there is a silly little screw inside the dial wheel, and I think you can see it, it's this screw, and for some reason or other they tighten that screw beastly hard. So I had a very hard time loosening it up, and as you can see it's a little bit damaged but not too much. So use plenty of graphite oil before you try to unscrew it. In the end I had to resort to using needle nose pliers and put quite a bit of torque on the screw to loosen it up. So, and that's why it's a little bit damaged, but nothing catastrophic. And oh, by the way, this pulley was also covered with the same nasty cadmium stuff, which you can find all over the chassis and the IF cans. So once again, when you clean this up, put on a pair of latex gloves, you know, just to protect yourself. Alright, so to resume, if you want to work on the inside of the chassis, you first undo the dial. Then you undo the pulley for the dial. Then you turn over the chassis like this. And you undo the tuning capacitor by undoing the 3 screws that hold it to the chassis. You unsolder these 2 points, and then you can just lift it up and away from the chassis. Remember, this long shaft needs to come out too, so you need to really lift it obliquely. Then you need to undo the transformer by these 2 screws, one here and one on the other side. I don't know if you can see it, but it's down there. Then you need to unsolder the potentiometer for the volume control. Then you need to take off the wheel. The same thing here, there's a pulley and then there's a wheel on top. So you undo the wheel, you undo the pulley. Once the transformer is taken out, undo the wheel for the volume control. Unsolder the potentiometer, undo the 2 bolts, and take out the potentiometer too. And then finally take these 2 ceramic capacitors out by undoing the 2 screws. So, oh yeah, and then to undo the IF cans, just undo the bolts which hold it down, which hold them down to the chassis. So those are in a nutshell the instructions to prepare the chassis for repair.